Excuse me.
This is a CBS News special report. Dan Rather at CBS News World Headquarters in New York. Good afternoon. We're on the air because Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Palestinian leader Arafat reached and are about to sign now a new Land for Peace agreement. The signing ceremony is taking place in the East Room of the White House, underscoring President Clinton's intense personal involvement in the negotiations held over the last 9 days at a retreat in Maryland. Now, key elements of today's agreement include the Israelis pulling 13% more of their troops out of the West Bank. Israel is to cede about 14% more of the West Bank to the Palestinians. Israel has agreed, it is said, to free 750 jailed Palestinians. It will allow the Palestinians to open an airport in Gaza. The Israelis will also open 2 corridors of safe passage between Gaza and the West Bank, and the Israelis have committed to a 3rd phase of troop redeployment from the West Bank. The Palestinians agreed to eliminate anti-Israeli provisions in the Palestine Liberation Organization founding charter, and the Palestinians, it's reported, have agreed to arrest terrorists and confiscate weapons in their territory. Now, what's happening in the East Room at the moment is that the dignitaries have assembled. Vice President Gore has spoken, and we're about to hear from the
Prime Minister Netanyahu,
the President after
Arafat,
Vice President Gore finishes speaking. Now, the deal was done earlier today. It was held up by a last-minute hassle having nothing to do with Israeli-Palestinian issues. At issue was Israel's desire, some said demand, to have Jonathan Pollard, an American convicted of spying for Israel, released from a federal prison. This has been one of Israel's objectives for quite some time, and at the last minute, this came up. The Israelis, some of the Israelis saying that President Clinton had agreed to release Pollard from prison. However, this afternoon, the White House denied that and said that President Clinton has promised only to, quote, take another look at the Pollard case. Now, whether that does or does not mean that Pollard is to be released at some later date, we'll simply have to see as time goes along. Now, as Vice President Gore goes on there in the East Room, and we await President Clinton actually getting up to address the assembled people in the East Room, including some congressmen, diplomats of other nations, and a pool of reporters. Let's bring in Professor Fuad Ajami, our CBS News consultant from Johns Hopkins University. Fuad, let's pull back for a moment and talk about what this agreement is and what it is not.
Well, this isn't really, Dan. This is not Camp David. It's not even Camp David Light. This is an interim agreement that was essential because the peace between Benjamin Netanyahu and Yasser Arafat had broken down. These two people are allergic to each other, and the American president brought them together to reconstitute, if you will, the spirit of this peace of Oslo that was arrived at 5 years ago. And in the case of President Clinton, last time around, he got to give the bride away after the couple had eloped and had their first child. This time he was there and he had to do the patient work, and it has paid off.
So Secretary of State Madeleine Albright described it as a way station.
Yes. On
the road to peace.
Yes.
She did not describe it as a breakthrough. Fair?
Well, I think it's fair enough. They had to go back to the negotiations between Chairman Arafat and Prime Minister Netanyahu. The Palestinians will get something here. They're going to get another 13% of the land in the West Bank. They already control by now 40% of the land of the West Bank and Gaza. They'll get an airport. It really, Dan, it's retail diplomacy. It's trench warfare. It's not it's not the big poetry of the Peace of Oslo between Rabin and Arafat 5 years ago. This is just detail. And our president, President Clinton, had to go and do this minute detail because it was essential to reconvene and put this process together again.
Well, as we continue to await President Clinton's remarks in the East Room, let's turn to our CBS News White House correspondent, Scott Pelley. Scott, this comes, less than 2 weeks before an American election campaign. The timing coincidental?
Well, the timing is somewhat coincidental, Dan, because the timing was detailed with the convenience of the parties in mind. However, your point is very well taken. The president desperately needed this to work out. And there was a long period of time today when it seemed like it wouldn't work out because everything was all contingent on the Pollard situation. Now, the Israelis said that the president had agreed to release Pollard. The White House said that that was never the case. Dan?
Well, we'll see as time goes along. And here now, live from the East Room to discuss this Middle East peace accord is the President of the United States.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President, Madam Secretary, Your Majesty, Prime Minister Netanyahu, Chairman Arafat, to the Israeli and Palestinian delegations, the members of Congress and the Cabinet, members of the diplomatic corps, my fellow Americans who are here. It's a great honor for me to welcome you here. I only wish the First Lady were here as well. She is in Chicago. We talked a few moments ago, and she sends her great happiness and best wishes, especially to Queen Noor and Mrs. Netanyahu. After some very difficult negotiations, very long, dare I say, quite sleepless, the Israelis and Palestinians here have reached an agreement on issues over which they have been divided for more than 17 months. This agreement is designed to rebuild trust and renew hope for peace between the parties. Now both sides must build on that hope, carry out their commitments, begin the difficult but urgent journey toward a permanent settlement. Over the last 9 days, I have witnessed extraordinary efforts on behalf of peace. I thank our team, beginning with its head, the Secretary of State, who showed remarkable creativity, strength, and patience. I thank the Vice President for his interventions. I thank my good friend Sandy Berger, our Director of Central Intelligence, George Tenet, who had an unusual, almost unprecedented role to play because of the security considerations, our Special Middle East Coordinator, Dennis Ross, who was a young man with no gray hair when all this began. I thank all the other outstanding members of our delegation. I thank Prime Minister Netanyahu, who stood so firmly for the security of his citizens and of his country, and of the impressive members of his cabinet and administration. I thank Chairman Arafat, who tenaciously defended the interests of his people, and the very impressive members of his team as well. In the end, after all the twists and turns and ups and downs, all their late and ultimately sleepless nights, both reaffirm their commitment to the path of peace, and for that the world can be grateful. And finally, let me thank His Majesty King Hussein, whose courage, commitment, wisdom, and frankly, stern instruction at appropriate times were at the heart of this success. Your Majesty, we are all profoundly in your debt. This agreement is good for Israel's security. The commitments made by the Palestinians were very strong, as strong as any we have ever seen. They include continuous security cooperation with Israel and a comprehensive plan against terrorism and its support infrastructure. This agreement is good for the political and economic well-being of Palestinians. It significantly expands areas under Palestinian authority to some 40% of the West Bank. It also offers the Palestinian people new economic opportunities, with an airport and industrial zone, soon safe passage between Gaza and the West Bank, and in time a seaport. The Palestinian people will be able to breathe a little easier and benefit from the fruits of peace. Most importantly, perhaps, this agreement is actually good for the peace process itself. For 18 months, it has been paralyzed, a victim of mistrust, misunderstanding, and fear. Now, ordinary Israelis and Palestinians once again can become partners for peace. To bolster this effort, Chairman Arafat will invite members of the Palestinian National Council and other important political entities to reaffirm his prior commitments and their support for the peace process. I have agreed to address that meeting several weeks hence and to underscore the values of reconciliation, tolerance, and respect, and my support for those commitments and this process. People around the world should be heartened by this achievement today. These leaders and those with whom they work have come a very long way. The Israeli and Palestinian peoples, whose bitter rivalry in this century has brought so much suffering to both sides, have moved yet another step closer toward fulfilling the promise of the Oslo Accords, closer to the day when they can live peacefully as true neighbors, with security, prosperity, self-governance, cooperation, and eventually, God willing, genuine friendship. No doubt as peace gains momentum, forces of hate, no matter how isolated and desperate, will once again lash out. They know this, the leaders, and they are prepared to face it. Staying on the path of peace under these circumstances will demand even greater leadership and courage. The work at Wye River shows what can happen when the will for peace is strong. But let me say once again to all the rest of you, everyone who is tempted to handicap every little twist and turn over the last 9 days, you need to know one overwhelming thing. The Prime Minister and the Chairman and the members of their delegation who supported this process, even when there were things about it they did not agree with, are quite well aware that the enemies of peace will seek to extract a price from both sides. They are quite well aware that in the short run, they themselves may have put themselves at greater risk. But by pledging themselves to the peaceful course for the future, to the same values, and ultimately to the same enemies, they have given both Israelis and Palestinians a chance to have the future we all want for our children and our children's children. Every effort will have to be exerted to ensure the faithful implementation of this agreement, not because the parties do not want to do so, but because the agreement covers many things, was developed over many days, involved many discussions and sleepless nights. It will test whether the Palestinian people are prepared to live in peace, recognizing Israel's permanence, legitimacy, and a common interest in security. It will tell us whether Israelis want to help build a strong Palestinian entity that can fulfill the aspirations of its people and provide both real security and real partnership for Palestinians and Israelis. The United States is determined to be of whatever help we can to both sides in their endeavors. I will consult with Congress to design a package of aid to help Israel meet the security cost of redeployment and help the Palestinian Authority meet the economic costs of development. I hope we will have support from Republicans and Democrats in that endeavor. With respect to Mr. Pollard, I have agreed to review this matter seriously at the Prime Minister's request. I have made no commitment as to the outcome of the review. Ultimately, the parties will have to translate the gains of Wye River into renewed efforts to secure a just and lasting peace. For as big a step as today is, And after 17 months, it is a very large step indeed. It is just another step along the way. Therefore, perhaps as important as any other statement to be made today, let me say how grateful I am that the Prime Minister and the Chairman have agreed to begin permanent status talks upon ratification of this agreement. I have agreed to convene the two leaders at an appropriate time to seek to complete these talks. We have all agreed to try to do it under circumstances which permit more sleep at night. Let me say that no agreement can wipe away decades of distrust. But I think these last several days have helped each side to get a better understanding of the other's hopes and fears, a better feel for all they have in common, including, on occasion, thank the Lord, a good sense of humor. The future can be bright for Israelis and Palestinians if they maintain the will for peace. If we continue to work together, the next generation will grow up without fear. Israel can have the genuine security and recognition it has sought for so long. The Palestinian people can, at long last, realize their aspirations to live free and safety in charge of their own destiny. So, on behalf of all the people of the United States, let me say to the Israeli and Palestinian peoples, salam, shalom, peace be with you in the hard and hopeful days ahead. We value our friendship and we thank you for your trust, for giving us the opportunity to walk this road with you. Now it is my privilege to introduce Prime Minister Netanyahu. Let me say I was once again extraordinarily impressed by the energy, the drive, the determination, the will, the complete grasp of every detailed aspect of every issue that this Prime Minister brought to these talks. He showed himself willing to take political risks for peace, but not to risk the security of his people. And as a result, this agreement embodies an enormous increase in the security of the people of Israel. Mr. Prime Minister, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, the Vice President, Your Majesty, Queen Noor, Madam Secretary Sandy Berger, their staff, and especially Dennis of the White Hair and Olympic Endurance, and all the delegations assembled here, and all the distinguished ministers of Israel and the Palestinian Authority, and the members of the Senate and Congress, and the many friends who are here today. Today is a day when Israel and our entire region are more secure. Now, this has required sacrifice from both sides and reaching into what Lincoln called the better nature of mankind. This is an important moment to give a secure and peaceful future for our children and the children of our neighbors, the Palestinians. We have seized this moment. I'm asking all people of goodwill, of honesty and candor. I'm asking all of them to join us in support for this important step for a secure future, a future of peace. We are more secure today because for the first time since the signing of the Oslo Accords, we will see concrete and verifiable commitments carried out. Our Palestinian partners will join us in fighting terrorism. They will follow a detailed and systematic plan to fight terrorists and their infrastructure, to jail killers that have so far roamed at large, to stop vitriolic incitement, and above all, finally, after 35 years, to cancel the articles in the Palestinian Charter which call for the destruction of Israel. This means that our world today will be safer for our children and for our neighbors' children. But it has been said here, and it's true, that we are just at the beginning or maybe in the middle of the road to a permanent peace. We will soon embark on negotiations for permanent peace settlement between our two peoples. Now, I guarantee you it will not be easy, and it will not be simple, and it will be, Mr. President, despite your best wishes, sleepless. I guarantee you. Mr. Chairman, I guarantee that to you too. But I am today brimming with some confidence, and not overconfidence, simply because we have overcome tremendous challenges and achieved success for both sides, not at the expense of one side and the benefit of the other, but success and advantage and progress for both sides. And that fills me with the confidence that we are able to tackle the larger challenges that still await us and that still await our two peoples. There are so many people that I could thank in the American delegation. It's a wonderful one, headed by the Secretary of State and Sandy Berger and George Tenet and the team that was there, Dennis and Gamal, a provider of cigars and good humor, and so many others. But I want to especially thank President Clinton. He is, if I can borrow a cliche, he is a warrior for peace. I mean, he doesn't stop. He has this ability to maintain a tireless pace and to nudge and prod and suggest and use a nimble and flexible mind to truly explore the possibilities of both sides, and never just of one side. That is a great gift, I think a precious and unique one, and it served us well. So I thank you, Mr. President, for serving us and the cause of peace well. And I thank you I thank you, too, for your boundless optimism, without which these qualities cannot come into effect. You needed a lot of optimism. I want to thank Chairman Arafat. Mr. Chairman, your cooperation was invaluable, and I want to thank you personally, once again, for the kind wishes you extended me on a birthday that I shall never forget. Thank you very much. I want to thank Minister Sharansky. Mr. Sharansky is in Israel. He is celebrating now his daughter's bat mitzvah. I'm sure you all send him best and excuse him for not being here. But he and Defense Minister Mordechai and Foreign Minister Ariel Sharon brought to Y their patriotism and their commitment They are great patriots. They are people who have put themselves in line for their country and their people. And they've brought all that experience, all that courage, and all that perseverance, all that skill. And they assisted me and the State of Israel in ways that I think should be recounted and probably will repeat themselves, I hope, in the near future in a successful bid for peace. And I want, most especially, to thank two people at the close. I want to thank King Hussein, who visited us twice. And Your Majesty, you gave us an unforgettable and inspiring example of courage and humanity. And it moved me deeply. It moved every one of our people and our delegates deeply. And I thank you for that. And lastly, I would like to thank my wife, Sarah, who joined me, who offered me support and a great deal of wisdom in some trying moments, and who constantly reminded me of our two children, of all the children for whom we toil and dream and pray. Thank you very much.
Let me say, I wish that all of you who care about this could have seen at least a portion of what I saw in the last 9 days in the interchanges between Prime Minister Netanyahu and Chairman Arafat. It was very interesting. They were so different. I can't imagine Mr. Netanyahu in a keffiyeh. But they were very much alike in their tenacity and their astonishing intelligence and knowledge. Just as I was able to say a thank you to Prime Minister Netanyahu, let me say to Chairman Arafat, I thank you. I thank you for turning away from violence toward peace. I thank you for embracing the idea that Palestinians and Israelis can actually share the land of our fathers together. I thank you for believing that the home of Islam and Judaism and Christianity can surely be the home.
You're watching CBS Live coverage of the signing of the Middle East Peace Accord from CBS News.
God has created. And I thank you for decades and decades and decades of tireless representation of the longing of the Palestinian people to be free, self-sufficient, and at home. Mr. Chairman, the microphone is yours.
السيد الرئيس ويليام كلينتون،
Mr. William Clinton, the President,
السيد النائب آل غور،
Mr. Al Gore,
السيدة مادلين
Mrs.
أولبرايت،
Madeleine Albright,
السادة أعضاء الوفد
members of
الأمريكي،
the U.S. delegation,
الأصدقاء،
our friends,
شريكي
my co-partner,
الجديد
the new
والقديم
co-partner in the peace
في عملية
process,
السلام، السيد بيبي نتنياهو.
Mr. Netanyahu.
وأذكر هنا
And here I
شريكي
mention
الراحل
my late co-partner Ishaq Rabin
وشريكي
and my co-partner Shimon Peres,
السادة أعضاء الوفد الإسرائيلي
members of the Israeli delegation
والذين تعبنا سويا
with whom we worked together until we reached whatever we achieved.
إخوتي أعضاء الوفد الفلسطيني،
My brothers, members of the Palestinian delegation,
سيداتي سادتي،
ladies and gentlemen,
وهنا لابد أن أذكر
here in this regard, I would like
تحية خاصة
to give special
من القلب
tribute
إلى القلب
from my heart
لصاحب الجلالة
to
الملك حسين
His Majesty King Hussein
وصاحبة الجلالة
and Her Majesty,
على كل ما قدموا
the Queen, for
ويقدمون.
everything they presented us.
هذا يوم هام وسعيد،
This is an important
يوم
and a happy
إنجاز سوف
day,
نذكره
a
جميعا.
day of achievement that we will always remember with optimism and hope.
صحيح أن ما أنجز
It is true that
بأمور
whatever we
طارئة
achieved is only temporary,
تأخرت كثيرا عن
that has been
موعدها،
late,
ولكن
but
اتفاقنا
our
في الوادي
agreement
في
in the Wye River
يؤكد أن
underscores that the peace process
ماضية
is going ahead,
وأن ما
and
تم
that
الاتفاق
whatever we
عليه
agreed
في
upon in Madrid,
وأوسلو
Oslo,
وواشنطن
and in Washington and Cairo
يتم
is being
تطبيقه
implemented
وعلى نفس
on the same
الأسس والقواعد
basis that
التي
have
تم
been agreed
الاتفاق
to,
عليها، وأنه لا
and
تراجع
that we will never go back.
عن السلام
We will never leave the peace process, and we will never go back to violence and confrontation. No return to confrontation and violence.
وليسمح لي الحضور الكريم
Please allow me to mention in this connection, first and foremost,
إلى الصديق الكبير
to direct my talk
الرئيس بيل
to
كلينتون
Mr. Bill Clinton
على الساعات الطويلة
for the
والشاقة
long hours
التي بذلها خلال العشرة
which he
الأيام،
exerted during the past 10 days,
وخاصة
particularly
الساعات الاثنتين
those
والعشرين
24 hours
المتواصلة
that he spent continuously, where he was always alert
متفهم
and
مبدعا
understanding, creative, in order
ويسترجع
to
ألفة التاريخ
bring back
بين
history
أبناء الأمم
between the cousins.
نحن أبناء عم. تلك الألفة التي تضاعتها
This friendliness that have been
والحروب
separated through wars and destruction and violence for many years.
ثم اسمح لي
And please allow
أن
me
أتوجه بالشكر الجزيل
to present my tribute and acknowledgement to Mr. Al Gore
على كل ما قام به
for whatever he did
ويقوم به
and whatever he does
من أجل دفع
for
وحماية
pushing forward and protecting the peace process,
سلام الشجعان.
the peace process of courageous people.
صديقي الرئيس،
My dear friend,
إن شعبي مدين لك وللإدارة
we
الأمريكية
quite feel grateful to you and to the US people.
بالعرفان العظيم، وأنني حقا
And
مطمئن
indeed,
على مصير شعبي
I'm quite comfortable about the future of my people and that of the small peoples, having you as a great leader of the world at this great level
من العنفوان
of
والشباب،
youth and sincerity
من الحنكة والحكمة.
and wisdom.
إن هذه المزجة المباركة
This mixture
هي هبة
of great
من الله
things
لكم
is a gift from God to you and to your American people
وللبشرية
and for humanity as a
إن
whole.
وجودكم وحضوركم القوي
Your presence
على رأس السياسة الدولية
at the head of the international politics
العدل كثيرا من
brings
الميزان
justice in the balance of peace
والتعايش البشري
and coexistence,
العادل
which is just
والمتوازن.
and well balanced.
وكذلك أبعثها
I would also like
تحية من القلب
to send this tribute from my heart
إلى صاحب الجلالة الملك حسين
to His Majesty King
على
Hussein
مجهوداته المباركة
for his efforts,
رغم الظروف
even
الخاصة
though he has very
التي
special
يمر بها
health
وبالرغم من
concerns,
صعوبة
and in spite of the difficulty of the negotiations that we have gone through.
واسمحوا لي
Please allow me
أن أتوجه
also
إلى السيدة أولبرايت
to talk to Mrs. Albright
وإلى السيد ساندي بيرغر
and to Mr. Sandy Berger
وإلى السيد جورج تاني.
and Mr. George Talon.
لقد عملتم
You have
بدون
worked a
كلل
lot
لشهور طويلة
for long months,
مرهقة.
which was strenuous indeed,
يا سيدتي أولبرايت
during which, my dear
الأمان
Minister,
من أجل السلام
you crossed for thousands of miles for peace and the future of our children and contributed through your understanding.
إننا جميعا
We
نقدر
all appreciate your efforts.
العظيمة. وكذلك أتقدم بالتحية
I would also
والتقدير
like to express my gratitude
السلام
to
السفير دينيس روس
Mr. Dennis Ross
وفريق السلام
and
الأمريكي
the U.S. team working with him
المضنية معنا
for their efforts with us
مدة
for
طويلة
long hours and long
وساعات
days,
كثيرة لإيمانهم العميق
because they did believe
بأهمية السلام
in the importance of peace
لنا
for us,
ولأطفالنا.
for our children after us.
إن طريق المصالحة التاريخية بين
This
الشعبين
reconciliation between the two peoples,
الفلسطيني
the Palestinian and the Israeli people,
ينحرف عن
will
مساره
not divert its path
يمر عبر المفاوضات على الطاولة
and
والتركيز على
will
الأرض
go through negotiations on the table and not through tanks, grenades,
والأسلاك الشائعة.
and barbed wires.
لقد حققنا اليوم
We have achieved today
خطوة كبيرة
a large step,
ولكنها هامة.
but it is important,
يا شريكي
my co-partner, Mr. Netanyahu, it is important
في تثبيت
in
مرجعية
establishing the peace process,
هذه
because
سلام الشجعان
this is the peace of the courageous
تنفيذ
people.
قراري مجلس الأمن 242
The implementation of the Security Council resolutions 242 and 338
مقابل السلام
and the principle of land for peace, achievement of political rights of the Palestinian people,
وضع كل الجهود
and putting every effort possible in the service of achieving
وخاصة
security for all,
الأمن للشعب
particularly
الإسرائيلي.
for the Israeli people.
إن ذلك كله
All this
سيوصلنا إلى
will
البدء
bring us
فوراً
to the
وسريعاً
begin at once
في
and
مفاوضات
quickly
الحل
in the
النهائي
negotiations of the final solution
ستعمل
that
على
will
تحقيق السلام العادل
try to
والدائم
achieve
والشأن.
just and peaceful and permanent peace
ما يتم على المسار الفلسطيني
in order to complement what takes
على
place
المسارين
also on the Syrian and the Lebanese paths very
في
soon.
القريب العاجل إن شاء الله. إن ما حققناه
What we
سوياً
achieved together
وبدعم
with the
كبير
leading and effective
والدور الرائد
role
والفاعل الرئيس الصديق
of President William Clinton
وفريقه العظيم
and his U.S. team is something, if fully and sincerely implemented, will open the door
أمام الشعبين الفلسطيني
before the
والإسرائيلي
Palestinian and Israeli people for more achievements,
ومزيد
more
من
hope
الأمل والتفاؤل.
and more optimism,
ليس لنا فقط
not only for ourselves, but also
لمنطقة الشرق
for the Middle East regions as a whole.
ومرة ثانية
Once again,
أقول
I'm saying
that
it is a big step that came late, but it is indeed an important one because it will allow the return of 13% of the Palestinian land on the West Bank to the Palestinian people, to their sovereignty, and will allow to double the area where the Palestinian Authority will enjoy full-fledged authority and sovereignty. Yes, indeed, it is a step that will allow to the Palestinian airplanes to fly to and from the Gaza International Airport, carrying visitors and merchandise, carrying to the whole world the Palestinian flowers and fresh fruit. It will also open the door to build the Gaza seaport and the realization of the Palestinian dream of geographic unification between the regions of the Palestinian land in the Bank and Gaza through a secured area. It will also allow the achievement of real happiness for hundreds of the prisoners of Palestinians in the Israeli jails, and also for their families in everywhere, liberating them. And I will never forget this, in fact, for Mr. Netanyahu, with the assistance of King Hussein and President Clinton. I say they will be liberated outside their cells to where there is freedom and participation in the completion of what we started of peace process and building their free land with their heads held high and proud. I led those children during our struggle for freedom, and they gave their freedom and their lives for the sake of the land. However, they adopted the peace process, adopted peace, and stood by peace while they were in the jails. And now they are joining us in our peace process for the sake of peace. It is the peace of courageous people. We have succeeded in the agreement to stop all the unilateral actions that would undermine the final solution and bring about a difficult climate for negotiations on peace. With this agreement, we begin the final solution negotiations, which we will take very seriously and commitment in order to achieve it on its stipulated times in all the agreements we signed together, which is the 4th of May 1999. We will have understanding around this date between us and the Israeli partners, and between us, our friends in the US, and between us and our brothers, the Arabs, at the forefront of which is His Excellency, His Majesty King Hussein, and my brother, President Mubarak, who has been following with commitment what we are doing here in the US, and also our brothers, the Arabs, the Arab leaders who have been following our work minute by minute, and I will not forget the Federal Russia as well, and China, and Japan, and the states of the Union, the non-alignment countries. And in particular, I would like to mention in this regard the European role, who sent their delegation, Mr. Moratinus, in order to be here beside us during these negotiations. We are quite certain that we will stand together here in this place, which is at a high-level forum, and under the guardianship of the President Clinton, in order to announce the achievement of permanent peace between the Lebanese, the Palestinian and the Israeli peoples, that we have completed the solution of all issues, the return of the land, the status of Jerusalem, the status of the settlements, the final frontiers, and the return of refugees, and the just distribution of water and security and good relations with our neighbors, and that we have achieved freedom and independence and security for all. We will begin a new era of new relations based on equality, mutual feelings, and cooperation between two independent neighboring countries enjoying security and openness with their neighbors in a regional framework that would bring about peace, justice, and stability for all. Mr. President, President Clinton, Your Majesty, King Hussein, my co-partner, Mr. Netanyahu, Mr. Al Gore, ladies and gentlemen, I talked in hope and optimism about the future, which I hope will be achieved together through sincere and accurate achievement of whatever we agreed upon. But I would like to ascertain in honesty and sincerity that we are fully committed to whatever is required from us in order to achieve real security and constant peace for every Israeli person and for the Israeli people. We will not forget our duties as we underline our rights. I am quite confident that I'm talking in the name of all Palestinians when I assure you that we are all committed to the security of every child, woman, and man in Israel. Here we have come to a detailed agreement, and we are committed to play our independent role to keep security, and we will achieve whatever we promised here. I will do everything I can so that no Israeli mother will be worried if her son or daughter is late coming home, or any Israeli would be afraid when they heard an explosion. It is true that nobody can secure a 100% result of security for all Palestinians and all Israelis. But I am proud that we were able to work together, and we will be able to do more together with the assistance of all our friends all over the world, in America and in Europe, and with great commitment to achieve much more in the years ahead. Yes, indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, we want achievement of the peace of courageous people to end this long suffering in order to build an independent nation having a lot of democracy and caring for his children. We want a school and education for every child and young man. We want a job for every man and woman, and a modern medical clinic, and a hospital, and a small house as well. where everybody feels comfortable and where laughter is heard of happy, healthy kids. We want that and more for our neighbors and co-partners, the Israeli people and the Arabs. We want a factory, a lab, an airport and a seaport, a clean environment, and an ability to grow and to develop. And on the occasion of the new millennium, which represents the birth of Jesus Christ in Bethlehem, where his light came out to the world, we would like to receive the whole world now, calling for peace and justice and freedom for a world where there is stability, fraternity, and cooperation. We would also like to pursue the joint work with our neighbors, the Arabs, as well as the regional work, which is cooperative and successful. And even though I realize the difficulties that we face, and my full knowledge of whatever we sign today will only trickle down to worthless ink on paper unless it is implemented accurately and quickly. So I call upon President Clinton to remain with us, alert and supportive in order to make sure that we implement everything we agreed upon. However, I'm also happy that I call upon my sons and children in Palestine, in the diaspora and confinement, bringing to them the good news of a better future where they enjoy a better life with freedom, dignity, and independent country. I want them to work with me seriously and sincerely in order to do everything we can, all the sacrifices to build our nation, Palestine. And so I also say something special for my children, that they are in our imagination and minds and conscience, and we will never forget their rights, their efforts, and their tortures. And in particular, I call upon my brothers and sisters in the refugee camps in Lebanon that this long standing apart will not be long, and they will come back to Palestine in their dignity. For those who sacrificed for Palestine, the martyrs, the wounded, the widows, the orphans, and the prisoners, without whom we wouldn't have achieved this day for freedom for them all, I tell them that we are going to achieve peace. To all our brothers, the Arabs, who embraced us in our difficulties and supported us during war and peace, I tell them that we will continue our effort and will be committed to our cause. I am really honored with the presence of King Hussein with us to stand with us, supporting our effort for peace, even though he needs rest and medical care to go back safe to his kingdom once again, and to the Arab nation and Islamic nation. Our daily contacts with President Mubarak and Minister Amr Moussa was important in giving us the sincere advice and support and expertise. And I say the same thing for all the Arab leaders who were in constant contact with us, supporting us, guiding us, and wishing us success in our effort. Mr. President, members of the U.S. government, my co-partner, Mr. Netanyahu, and the delegation, and the Israeli people. The U.S. administration has done every possible and creative effort for the success of this work that took place on American land and in the hospitality of the U.S. administration. What President Clinton did, along with his colleagues, is rare to see or find anywhere. In spite of his full schedule, President Clinton gave us his full attention with members of his government and the officials and scores of experts and assistants for the success of these negotiations and bringing us to this result that has been achieved. President Clinton and four assistants, I would like to say that they have a special place in our hearts, and the peace process has witnessed, under your directions, all this success, and with our presence here with him in the White House. We are certain that he will be witnessing the signing of the final agreement here in the White House, so he will have achieved the two important things in the peace process, Palestine and Ireland, and he will stay in the heart of every Palestinian person with every love. In this regard, I would also like to thank the European Union for their continued support of the peace process. And from here, I will go to Vienna, where the European presidency, in order to tell them and to thank them for their support of the peace process in the coming days. And I would also like to thank the Russian president, and I believe that my visit to President Yeltsin and Primakov and Blair as a support to continue this peace process and to support the same role played by the Russians and the Europeans. I would like to thank them all, to thank China in particular, and Japan, and the Asian and African countries, and the non-aligned countries, Islamic countries, and the Latin American countries. All of them support the peace and the rights of our people, and know that they will celebrate the achievement of peace in our region, because this peace will establish security and stability and growth all over the world. And at last, I would like to direct my talk to Mr. Netanyahu and his colleagues to say, today we have achieved a great positive agreement. We have to continue that together very soon and to implement it quite sincerely in reality. Your security is our security. Your security is our security, and peace for your children and our children. And we will work together through the peace process and negotiations, even though they are difficult, in order to achieve a final solution. We will not retreat. We will not go back to violence or confrontation, and we together will be the leaders in order that peace would prevail on our land and the land of our neighbors, and peace be with you all.
So, another accord between the Israelis and Palestinians has been worked out over the last 9 days under intense pressure from President Clinton. Stay tuned to these CBS stations for more on this story. We'll, of course, have complete coverage on tonight's CBS Evening News. For now, Dan Rather, CBS News New York. We'll see you on tonight's Evening News.
This has been a CBS News special report. CBS.com for news 24 hours a day. Experience you can trust. CBS News.